Today we're going to draw a lesson from the Bible book of Job. And the lesson is this: in spite of God allowing the devil to be the ruler of the world, the book of Job builds our confidence in Jehovah's supreme authority. And when we have confidence in his supreme authority, that helps us to endure. In fact, Jehovah is referred to as the Almighty 32 times in the book of Job, which is more often than all the rest of the scriptures. The Bible not only tells us Job's story, but it reveals the understory, what was going on behind the scenes. It peels back the heavens and teaches us big lessons on Jehovah's superiority. Let's take a closer look. We open our Bibles now to Job chapter 1. Job chapter 1, and we can begin in verse 6. Now the day came when the sons of the true God entered to take their station before Jehovah, and Satan also entered among them. Well, the appearance of Satan here is only by Jehovah's permission. Jehovah tolerated Satan's presence so that a moral issue could be settled. But we need to remember, Jehovah, as the sovereign of the universe, was not threatened by Satan's presence. Jehovah stayed in control. He called the shots, and his supreme authority was never in danger, as we will see in the next verse, verse 7. Then Jehovah said to Satan, "Where have you come from?" Jehovah has the upper hand. Jehovah asks the questions. Satan gives the answers. He's in control. Well, and Jehovah knew the answer to that question, where have you come from? But by permitting Satan to speak, it now gave opportunity for the devil to reveal to everyone else what Jehovah already knew, that he was roving about in the earth and he was up to no good. Well, now let's go to verse 8. And see what Jehovah does next. He stays in control and begins to squeeze Satan. Verse 8. And Jehovah said to Satan, "Have you taken note of my servant Job?" Or, as the footnote highlights, have you set your heart on Job? Jehovah calls Satan out. He knows what's going on. But Satan, like a coward, didn't even bring up the matter of Job. Jehovah raised the subject, knowing that Satan was stewing about it the whole time. We find Jehovah reading the inmost thoughts of Satan's heart. In other words, let's get it out. Let's get it out. And out it came. There in verse 10. Satan says, "Oh, you've put up a protective hedge around him, and you've blessed everything in his hand." That's right. And you can do nothing about it. You see, the fact that Satan could not remove this hedge shows his inferiority and Jehovah's superiority. And Jehovah has every right to protect his interests of his people, and he uses his power to do so. In the Garden of Eden, after Adam's rebellion, what did Jehovah do? He took immediate action to control the Garden of Eden and that tree of life by setting 2 cherubs there to protect it. Satan could not do anything about that. And in the flood of Noah's day, what did Jehovah do? He washed away the Nephilim, Satan's earthly civilization. The devil could not prevent that. Again, highlighting Jehovah's superiority. And now in chapter 1 and verse 11, Satan says, "Stretch out your hand," he says to Jehovah, "and strike everything he has." Satan wants Jehovah to stretch out his hand and strike Job? No, that's not going to happen. Jehovah maintains his position and doesn't even stoop to a debate. He doesn't take orders from the devil, nor does he afflict his people. But he does allow Satan to test Job up to a point. And that's in verse 12. But again, notice how Jehovah exercises his superior position. In verse 12, he lets Satan persecute Job to a degree, but he says, "Do not lay your hand on the man himself." And that's showing that he put specific limits on Satan, and Satan obeyed, demonstrating to all that his control was not all-embracing. Jehovah shows him up to be a sham sovereign, a helpless inferior. And the very thing Satan craves the most is that something he will never have, and that is there'll always be someone on this earth that clings to true worship. Well, there's chapter 1, and Satan is shown up to be an inferior, and Jehovah's superior power is obvious. And now in chapter 2, we have round 2, or another assembly, part 2. Satan shows up again in verse 1. But again, notice verse 6 when he wants to again accuse Job of not being loyal. In verse 6, Jehovah says, yes, he's in your hand, but you do not take his life. Again, one more time. Satan recognized his impotence. Jehovah put him on notice, and he followed the rules. Satan complied. Well, again, showing Jehovah is almighty. And that's the point of this discussion. It builds confidence in us and helps us to endure knowing Jehovah's superior power. But now the master stroke in chapter 42 and verse 10. 42:10. Now, Job's trial was within a few months, his suffering, perhaps less than a year, and then it was over. But look what happens in verse 10. After Job prayed for his companion, Jehovah removed Job's tribulation, or turned back that captive condition, as the footnote highlights. So again, here we see that Jehovah, once that trial served its purpose, once it was settled, Jehovah said, enough. The gavel went down. It's over. It's finished. And the supreme sovereign took immediate action and turned back that captive condition. He had Satan on a short leash the whole time. And why is this important? Because again, understanding Jehovah's superior power instills confidence in us that he will not allow this system to go on any longer than is necessary. So let's put it all together in line with Romans 15:4. These are the things that fortify us to endure and that remind us that our trial will not go beyond what we can bear. These are the things that convince us Jehovah has the upper hand, and whatever he permits is in line with his purpose, and that Satan is nothing but a pseudo-sovereign. These are the things that prove to us that our Heavenly Father is eager to turn back our captive condition. Yes, these are the things that were written for our instruction.